Hello, everybody. We are live on the dentaa show. How's everybody doing? Hello, everybody. How are you all doing? Welcome to the dentaa show. It's Thursday night and it's date night with dentaa. As you know, we bring you so many different issues, but you know what? It's to empower, it's to inspire, and also to create solutions. And so thank you so much for joining me on tonight's show. Before we start, as always, I want to say hello to my viewers. I want to know where you are watching me from. I see that Gertrude says she's in Phoenix. Nancy, where are you watching us from tonight? Please say hi. I want to see where you guys are watching us from. And don't forget to share your pages. The dentaa show is live. I don't want you to get all the information yourself. I want to make sure that people, your friends, your family also get to watch and enjoy the show and also inspire them and impact them. So if you are watching, make sure that you share your page. And, you know, today is a really, really exciting topic. You know, we hear refugees, we talk about refugees. What is a refugee? You know, what is that all about? I hope that you enjoyed last week's show. And you're also enjoying Kofi Aku's show as well. Okay, Nancy Ajimai is watching us from Belgium. Hello, Nancy. I hope you are well. Please don't forget to subscribe and also to share your pages. All my viewers are here. They are coming in thick and fast. Dora, hi, good evening, Dora. Dilly from Ghana. Kojo, Accra. Sheila's watching us from London. Oh, we have Yolanda from Las Vegas. Where else? Come on, guys. Where else are you watching me from? Hey, Kwabena from Ghana. Hey, Kwabena. Ghana Judas is watching us from Ghana. Hello. Hi, Didi Blay from Germany. Guys, please share your pages. Don't forget that, you know, you can share your pages to a loved one. You can also do a watch party. You know, on Facebook now, you can invite people to watch. So make sure that you share your pages as much as possible. Tonight's subject is a very, very good one. Hello, Charlene. How are you? Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Please share your pages. I'm going to be sharing my page. So let me do that whilst you guys are still saying hello to me. I'm going to share my page right now. So let me share my page whilst you guys are sharing yours. And remember, I can see everybody who doesn't share their page. If you don't share your page, I can see it. So make sure that you do share your page. So let's have a look. Let me share. Okay, I hope you are still here with me. As always, I need to say a big thank you to Vesta London Beauty. Vesta London Beauty for giving me these lip gloss. That's her website on there. She is supporting, you know, the dentaa show. Thank you so much. You know, she's a young Ghanaian girl that started to do her own cosmetics range, and she's starting with lip gloss. So thank you so much for that. And I must say a big thank you to Prodigy. So there's another Ghanaian girl who's based in Atlanta, and she's doing all-purpose seasoning and jollof seasoning and shito and all of that. Guys, you need to grab it. You know, remember, we are supporting our own. We need to make sure that we support our own. She's a 25-year-old girl based in Atlanta and has decided during lockdown to do something else. Figure out, what can I do during lockdown? And she's come out with these amazing sauces and also seasoning for your foods. For those that love jollof rice, you need that seasoning in there. That's her website details. So make sure that you go on there and buy and support. You know, let's support our own. Let me see what my audience is saying. Dora's from Canada. Hi, Amma. Millicent is watching from France. Kojo from Germany. Kwabena Kwame, where are you watching from? Gertrude. Oh, Gertrude, you bought some. Oh, fantastic. Well done. Thank you for supporting. That's amazing. That is amazing. I like it when people support. That's fantastic. And I hope tonight, dear, you have to be supporting. Tonight is strictly about supporting. So thank you so much. Akosia from Netherlands. TJ, how can I get it in the UK? I mean, the jollof rice seasoning. You can order online, TJ. So the website is here. This is the website. Please go online and just order, and she'll deliver to you around the world, wherever it is that you are. So all of those people that are watching across the globe on the dentaa show tonight, you can actually order one right now. So please, 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 please go online and order it. Okay, I'm just trying to get my viewers here so I know that you guys are all here. Amina's watching us from Kenya. Akwasi, where are you watching us from? Please let us know. Let us know. Keep sharing your page, share your pages, and subscribe. It's really important. And for those people that are really interested in investing in Africa, in Ghana, this is the website that you need to go on to. If you're looking for job opportunities, if you're looking for partnerships, go to odanaconnect.com and register. And also, for those who are watching across the globe, if you haven't used TapTapSend, make sure that you use TapTapSend and use the promo code dentaa, and you get £5 to send to a loved one. So grab that and make sure that you download TapTapSend. Okay, Akwasi's watching us from London. Okay, I think it's time to introduce our guests. I know that you guys are here eagerly waiting to see who I've got on today. Right. Let me, okay. So I'm sure that you can see the image on your screen at the moment. So I'm going to invite onto the screen right now, Mrs. Nida Jehu Apia has been working for the UNHCR, the UN Refugees Agency, for over 17 years across Africa and in its headquarters in Geneva, Switzerland. She is an amazing person. I've just had, just about 15 minutes acquaintance with her, and you can tell that she's a very passionate woman. I love women who are in position that can command, that know what they're about and what they are doing. And you can tell that she has a lot of passion in what she is doing. She's a Ghanaian. She will be discussing the Mask for Refugees campaign to protect vulnerable families forced to flee from the spread of COVID-19. And COVID-19 has had its ups and downs, its positives and negatives. And so, please welcome Nida, first of all, to the show, and then we will make sure that we invite our next guest as well. So let me take this off the screen. And then, hi, Nida.
Hi, dentaa. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us on tonight's show. So first of all, what is your role? When we talk about UNHCR, what is that? What is it?
So UNHCR is the UN organization that is mandated to ensure protection of refugees. That is people who have been forced through no fault of theirs to flee their homelands across an international border. We also look after internally displaced persons in specific situations. So often what happens is that when there is a situation in a country, the government will invite UNHCR to say, help me with the internally displaced, and we will then do that. There is another group of people, also tragically completely disenfranchised, and is this group of people that are called stateless people. So basically, sometimes legislation, if it can be, it doesn't have to be war or anything, but the legislation, for instance, in certain countries do not allow women to transfer their nationality to their children. So in such a case, if you're a woman from such a country, and you have a kid and your husband is not from your country and your husband is not doesn't have nationality or is unable to transfer his nationality to your child could be stateless. And you could be a middle class person or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's just legislation in a lot of the cases. So these are the three groups of people that UNHCR looks after.
Okay. So, I mean, you've worked over 17 years at the UNHCR. What are some of the day-to-day problems that African refugees face that may not be obvious to many of us?
Yeah, so the reality is that we come from a very impoverished continent. Africa is the third world, and we have a lot of issues, social, economic, health, name it, and we have it. Refugees are not exempt from that. Refugees often, when you flee, no government is going to give you the prime real estate like cantonments for you to put your refugees, right? So you're often in very deprived areas. And so they join the already, drained resources of these deprived areas and stay there. What UNHCR does is whatever resources or any efforts that we put out in refugee camps is not only for the refugees, but also the host community. Because again, often they are very impoverished. In Ghana specifically, our government has been phenomenal. It's over the years, Ghana has been one of the most hospitable countries for hosting refugees. I remember when I was very young, South African apartheid refugees used to always be in my house all the time because I have a brother that was always with them. So Ghana has always been very, very friendly to the refugee mandate. However, even though we say that everybody has, experienced poverty and it's so what? They are poor, they don't have clothes, they don't have houses, neither do those in the slums or the inner cities that we have. We have to remember that the refugee situation is a very artificial situation. And while if you're poor in your own country, or you're orphaned or, any of these unfortunate situations, you still have a network and it's a support system. You have, if nothing else, a neighbor that has known you since you're born, or your grandmother or your granddaughter, or somebody, a primary school teacher, or just somebody that has known you for a long time. When you're uprooted and put in a refugee camp, even if you're from the same country, you may not even speak the same language. You may not know each other. I remember a story of this woman who didn't show up for food distribution for a couple of so food distribution was on Monday. This is when I was working in Ghana. It was on a Monday or Tuesday, and by Thursday she had not showed up. And it was somebody that I had an affinity for, so I went to go check. She had a stroke and lying in her. Yes, nobody would check on her. She doesn't have a single relative in the entire camp. It is not possible in any part of Ghana for any old lady in any village to get a stroke and lie in her room for days with nobody noticing that she has not been out. So this is some of the backstory to the refugee journey. The other thing that people always forget about is what led to the flight in the first place. Because human beings are resilient, and because human beings like to, in particular, people of African descent, because we like to be proud and we don't like to show our pain, you will see the person walking down the road looking normal, but the backstory of what she's gone through, you have no idea.
Sure.
There's a story of a Congolese woman whose priest was raped in front of her. Male priest was raped in front of her. She was raped. She was asked to boil her baby for the rebels. Name it, in front of her other two kids. So these kids have consistent nightmares. But that, if you see the woman now at the water point fetching water or whatever, you'd be like, oh, but why is she, why should I give courage to somebody else? But that's the backstory that people don't know. So when you say everyday lives of refugees, they have the same poverty issues that we have in our inner cities and in our countryside, but compounded with that is what is never going to happen to anybody with a sovereign government in place. The stories, nobody's going to ask you to boil your baby in any part of Ghana just because you're poor. You will just say, no, I won't do it, and you report the person. But when you don't have structures, to help you, this is when these things happen. So, this is it. This is the refugee journey. It is horrible. It is painful. But refugees are very resilient, and they put their good foot forward and hope that people will just be able to help UNHCR to be able to help them. This is, in a nutshell, what it is.
Wow. So how did COVID-19 affect your work and the life of the refugees living in the refugees camp?
Right. Now, so Again, UNHCR is one of the few agencies that is frontline. We are an emergency organization. So we have colleagues who are still delivering as we speak. They have never taken a day off. There are really difficult hardship locations where normally their colleagues take every 4 weeks, they take a few days off to go and see their families in other cities because the places are security phases, so they can't even have their families there. But they stayed to deliver because who is going to look after the refugees if they were to leave? So they stayed to deliver. Their families are anxious about them. They're separated from their families because they know that what they're doing is life-giving and there's nobody else to do it. So people stay without question. It wasn't even like somebody had to coax anybody. Nobody had to. And we have, UNHCR has a staff of 17,000 people. And they're staying to deliver. The only thing that stops us from delivering our maximum is financial resources. But otherwise, our colleagues are always on the ground. Wow. I will let, if my colleague was to join, I will let him also give you a sense of what the camps are like so that you get a really good sense. But they're very, very crowded. For instance, the last camp I was in just before the lockdown was Dzaleka refugee camp in Malawi. And it was built for 11,000 people and now has more than 40,000 people in it. So, and 11,000 was not with social distancing in mind. So now how are you going to do social distancing in this place? So we are rapidly, in fact, the Mass for Refugees initiative was an idea that came from that camp. We have a Luku club there, and they came up with this idea, said we're gonna die if we don't do something. And they even came up with this idea before it was fashionable to do cloth masks. They're like, we need something. So we're gonna, and we had a lot of incredible people who pitched in to help us fund them to be able to start doing these masks. And then we thought, why don't we, there are refugee camps everywhere in the same situation, some even worse. Why don't we spread this around and make sure that every African refugee can be protected? Because as you know, we are all as vulnerable as the most vulnerable amongst us. If you and I wear a mask and protect ourselves, you'll have somebody who will clean the elevator that you'll use, a driver that you'll touch, who will live somewhere, who is next to somebody like a refugee who, if they're infected, it will find its way to you. Yeah. So if you even look at it from a selfish perspective, it is in our interest to make sure that the most vulnerable around us and amongst us are covered.
Absolutely. And I think on that note, I'd want to hear from Tebow and, hear his story and his journey of how, he became a refugee and now to the position that he has now under the UN, is an incredible journey for him. So I think that, now is the time to interview Tebow Rogers. Tebow is a former refugee from Sierra Leone. He was resettled in Australia in 2005 after spending 7.5 years in a refugees camp in Ghana. He completed high school education through the UNHCR support. And so, I really want to hear his story, his journey. So please welcome on stage, Tebow Rogers. There we are. Hi, Tebow.
Yeah. Hello. Hi, everyone. Good. Hi.
How are you?
Thank you for having me. Very well, thank you. Yourself?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us on the show. So, Tebow, we've heard from Nida, but I want to hear your story, your journey. Just start from the top, really, of how you became a refugee and the story behind that.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. And I'm really pleased to be here. So, of course, my refugee journey. Every refugee will always remember their journey, and I still do remember my journey. I still remember I was 12 years old in Sierra Leone when the civil war broke out in Sierra Leone. So you can imagine at the age of 12, that's when our village was attacked. For over 6 years, in Sierra Leone, I myself and my family were displaced. So from Southern Sierra Leone, obviously we have to keep, moving from one location to another, obviously just for us not to, to be caught up, in the wider violence. But I guess for me, what really made me flee Sierra Leone was because of the insecurity and violence that has actually engulfed the whole country. And then also as well, I was just so scared. I was just so fearful that I did not want to be captured and recruited into militia forces or into rebel forces. That was really, really common. I don't know whether people, listeners and viewers, have actually heard about child soldiers in Sierra Leone, in the civil war in Sierra Leone. I was so scared that I did not want to be captured and recruited. I guess.
So as a 12-year-old, did you ever see some of your friends being captured into some of the soldiers? Did you ever see that? Yeah.
Yes. Actually, I do have my uncle, actually my younger uncle, that's my mother's younger brother, wasn't so lucky. He was captured and recruited into the militia force in Sierra Leone. Unfortunately, he could not make it. He was killed. His body mutilated, and up to date, we've not seen. Nobody have heard about where he's like. Nobody knows where he was buried. Nobody knows like his remains and all that. So that's just one of those really, really, really sad moments. I guess in Sierra Leone, like I said, I was just really, really living in fear. Hence the reason why, and the threats to my life, obviously, um, was just so scary. You have no idea. I do not wish that upon anybody. And so hence, obviously, at that point where I eventually had to escape Sierra Leone, I escaped on my own. I was alone.
Wow.
By the time,
Where were your parents at that time?
So at that point, that's one thing that people have to know. At that point, I've actually separated from my family. I did not really know where my family were exactly. If you were to ask me the time I actually left Sierra Leone, if I was to pinpoint where my family were, I did not know. We have all scattered. We did not. I did not know where they were. And for me, obviously, and again, anything could have happened to me. I could have been captured. So for me, the opportunity for me to flee Sierra Leone was just you just cannot. You just can't, because the insecurity has engulfed the whole country. Yeah. And then eventually, when I escaped Sierra Leone, when I fled Sierra Leone through neighboring countries, I still do not feel safe in neighboring countries. I still do not feel safe because obviously those issues with language barriers and all that. But then when I reached Ghana, I remember the night that I actually entered Ghana at the border in Ghana.
And how did you enter? How did you flee? How did you enter into Ghana?
Yeah, actually by road. So basically from Sierra Leone, right through Guinea, Conakry, and then Cote d'Ivoire, and then also Ghana. So I think it was 5 to 7 days journey.
Lost you a bit, Tebow.
And you have no idea. I shower during that period. Yes.
Tebow?
And by the time I actually arrived, I was just numb, literally, because at that point.
Tebow.
Yeah, hello. Can you guys hear me?
No, we can't hear you. You're breaking up.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
No.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, speak now. Let's see. Speak now. Let's see.
Okay. So, like I said, can you hear me now, guys?
Yes, better.
So,
yeah.
When I eventually, like I was saying, throughout my flight, guys, my whole body was numb, literally, my whole body, and all I could remember, I had my small Bible in my hand, and I was just reading. I was just praying. I was just praying. I remember that night when I arrived at the border, of Ghana. The immigration official made me really feel welcome and safe. It was so welcoming for me. At that point, I felt that was the first time I've actually felt safe since 1991.
Wow.
That night that I actually arrived at the Ghanaian border, that was the night that I actually felt safe. And once I entered Ghana, I knew communicating with Ghanaians was going to be a lot easier, because obviously Sierra Leone and Ghana, Commonwealth countries, so language barrier wasn't a problem. But for me, really, it was that sense of not welcoming and that sense of safety that I felt, that I'd not felt since 1991, when the first gunshot, when we had the first gunshot in 1991.
Wow. And so your time in Ghana, and what about when you got to Australia?
Firstly, I really want to reflect on my time in Ghana, because that was really that was the first time it was really defining, because the first time I came in contact with UNHCR, because the Ghanaian officials and the Ghanaian government handed me over to UNHCR for them to go through the normal process, which is obviously registering me as a refugee, giving me identity. Remember, guys, at this time that I've actually fled Sierra Leone, I had no identity, I had no ID card, I had nothing.
Wow.
So basically, it's just me literally saying, "Hey, my name is Tebow Rogers." That's about it.
That's
really.
it.
So that was the first time. That was the first time I was actually given identification, and that was the first time I actually felt as a human being again that I could be identified. So yeah.
And Tebow, how many of you arrived in Ghana at that time? How many of you managed to get to Ghana? Do you know the numbers?
Yeah. At that point, there was series, and there were thousands of refugees that actually left Liberia to Ghana. I remember in the over 50,000 refugees,
Wow.
that have actually arrived in Ghana during that period. So you can imagine.
Wow. And there were a lot of was there a lot of young people like your age? I mean, at the time you were 12, right?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, really good question. So by the time I'd actually escaped and fled Sierra Leone, I was 18 by then, and my category, it's what UNHCR classify as unaccompanied minors. So obviously I did not know nobody. I had no family in Ghana. I had no I've left literally it was just me and what I was wearing. So, and this is what happens when there's crisis. People flee, refugees flee their homes, their comfort of their villages, their communities, to an unknown place. Sometimes with the hope that, when the war finish, when the war is over, I can return back. But as you guys can see, I was actually in Ghana for 7.5 years as a refugee. So returning back home was never an option, because there was still violence in Sierra Leone. Yeah.
And so I just want to know, since your time, have you been able to reunite with your family? Did you ever get in touch? There's no connection?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. Thank you. It took me right through when I was in Ghana, I didn't have contact with my family. It was only when I was resettled, finally UNHCR, advocated and applied, for me. And then it was only when I actually arrived in Australia, that's when I started tracing my family through Red Cross.
Wow.
And then I started tracing my family, and finally I was actually able to know that vast majority of my family actually survived the war, which was a good thing. And obviously we had some family members that actually passed away. So then now, obviously, I had the first contact with my family, and then since then, I've actually started going back to Sierra Leone myself. I've been to Sierra Leone. I started going back in 2008. And since then, I try to go at least every year just to catch up with my family, see people, and the people that I grew up with, see the environment and the villages where I was. And it's always surreal whenever I go to Sierra Leone.
Oh, fantastic. I just want to take you back again, because I'm just trying to figure out.
Sure.
My eldest son is 12 years old, and I'm just trying to figure out, as a 12-year-old, seeing gunshots, seeing people getting murdered. you know, that image, that trauma, how has it affected you as a person?
Wow. I was just talking about it with my colleagues a few hours ago. Actually, for the first time, actually spoken about the trauma. For the first time, actually today.
Oh, wow.
It was very traumatic, and actually that followed me. That I lived that trauma for years. I have tried very hard to really, to be positive at all stages. It was like I remember that first night, the night leading up to the rebels attacking our village. I remember that night. It was dark. There was no electricity. So when it's like 7 o'clock, everywhere is dark. I remember, and my dad was sitting outside, listening to his local radio, and then one of the would-be attackers in the morning actually came to our company. I don't know whether they were on recognitions or were just trying to see where the houses were and all of that. So he came to our home that night. I remember he asked for water, and he had this foreign like strange accent that I've not heard. I remember my father did call out one of my mothers to bring water. Usually, my dad would have actually questioned, "Who are you?
Yeah.
Where are you coming from?"
And why are you asking me for water? Yes.
Exactly. But wisdom, I don't know. God, he did not ask. He just asked my stepmother to bring water. That guy, he drank and then disappeared in the dark.
Wow.
He disappeared in the dark, and then 6 a.m. in the morning, there was a gunshot. The firing had not started. The firing have not started. So obviously, we woke up now, firing, in the midst of like heavy gunshot. So then now, what then happened was that guy that had come
in the night
to ask water.
Yeah,
in the night. Now came with another colleague. Now this time not in full armed, fully armed.
Wow.
And guess what? At that point,
Tebow, we're losing you.
At that point, like we were not. Yeah, hello guys. Yeah.
No, we're losing you.
Hello.
Okay, go ahead again.
Hello, I'm here.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry. So to really reflect back on that.
No. So you were saying that
the next morning,
they came with another guy again. The next day in full armor. What happened?
So basically, they've now surrounded the whole village. They are now in the town, and obviously, everybody at that stage, at that point, all of us were lying down on the floor. You cannot sit. You cannot be elevated. You have to lie down on the floor, literally, like at the mercy of the armed people coming in. They can't do anything. Thankfully, on that day, that guy that had come, that armed guy that had come to ask for water, they did not do us anything. They did not harm us. But then it was after they left that night. I remember that night when the first gunshot, we had the first gunshot, and then the night, I don't want to really wish that upon anybody. The silence that engulfed the whole town. It's just so, we are just at the mercy of anything could happen to us. Anything could happen.
I'm losing Tebow a little bit, but
back to your
hold on. Yeah, Tebow, I keep losing you. I think is the reception. But what does the situation look?
Yes.
What does the situation today look like for refugees fleeing from their countries into other countries in Africa?
No, so yeah, no, Tebow's story always gives me goosebumps because, he's like, my baby brother and everything. Now we're family at UNHCR, and it's tough. But for each Tebow that is able to go through the system and attain to, any education beyond secondary, it's only about 3% of refugees that have post-secondary education versus a global average of 37%.
Wow.
So the level of disenfranchisement for refugees is really high. For secondary education, for refugees, the average is 24%, and the global average is 85%. So if you're a refugee, the chances of going to becoming anything is super slim. It is why we truly rely on the benevolence of individuals, places of worship, businesses, and different people to support us. The refugee situation today is quite critical. There are nearly 80 million people displaced as we speak. Globally, about 26 million of them are refugees, and the rest belong in the categories that I described earlier, including statelessness and internally displaced persons. And so it's very critical, like we're having that bilateral dentaa, that we all find solutions for this. It's just tragic. The situation is really, really bad. In Southern Africa, for instance, we had the cyclones on top of all of these things, and then now also COVID, all in the same and they don't have a prayer. Just picture a 12-year-old refugee boy who led as an unaccompanied minor, and is in a camp now, packed into space with a whole pile of people. He doesn't really have a voice. He cannot, say, I don't want to be next to you because you're coughing. Where's he going? You don't have anywhere to go. You're not going to get up and say, where are you going? You don't have a prayer. Whereas even if you're just homeless in, where you are, dentaa, in the UK or in Switzerland, where I am, or any other locations, like in Accra, where Tebow is, it's not, you can walk. And apart from the lockdown, you are free to walk in your own country with impunity because it's your space. You are entitled, no matter how disenfranchised you are.
It's true.
But if you're a refugee, you're going to stay in the camp. You don't have a choice. So you will stay in that camp. You will breathe in the same air as those that are infected. If, God forbid, we get the infections that high, we became very worried. Cases in some of the refugee camps started to grow, and we became very worried because how are we going to social distance in these places?
Yeah.
So this is why this is the situation.
Yeah.
Refuge.
But Nina, are refugees allowed in freely?
It depends. In a wonderful place like Ghana, refugees can go and come as they please.
Wow.
But again, there are many reasons why there are restrictions, even in Ghana, for some people. Because if you are my guest, I have to make sure that you're safe. And so if I think, for instance, that the profile that you have, you are wanted because your father was opposition or whatever, wherever this situation in your country is. I'll give you an example, for instance, of a young guy I met. He was about 19, and he was volunteering at the registration site. And he told me that he was in medical school. And you hear a lot of stories from refugees, and some of them are incredible. And you're like, wow, are you really, is that really possible? Anyway, so he said he was in medical school. And he was coming home for the weekend. And before he got to his house, when he got off the bus, before he got to his house, his neighbor saw him walking and ran to him and said, turn around and go, don't go to your house. And the neighbor pressed a few notes of money into his hand and he ran off. So he left and took a bus and ended up, in a refugee camp. They came there looking for him with a picture. So the police, they know. So he stays. UNHCR has what we call protection houses for those that are still being sought by armed men from their countries or whatever. So he was in a protection house, which is next to the police post. And they came there and had a scuffle with the police. The policeman told me himself. And then when they left, the picture fell from their pocket during the scuffle. That's how the police knew that the situation was very serious. So in situations like that, we have to find another solution very quickly and appeal to other countries and other places to perhaps take the person because of the proximity to their country of origin. So this is very real, and this is it's a horrible journey that, as Tebow said, we don't wish on anybody. Tebow, I know Tebow's story quite well, and it's heartbreaking. I've heard it And every time I hear it, I get goosebumps. As a mother, I cannot imagine what his mother must have gone through, knowing that his son has gone, because either it's darned if you do, darned if you don't. Because if he stays, he will be recruited into armed militia, and if he goes, he could die on the job. And he's just a child, and he had to do that, and it takes forever to be able to do that. And what resources did he have to? It's really like you have to just keep going, and thinking about that, and thinking about the refugee youth. The other statistic, as they say, statistics are human beings with the tears dried off. But sometimes you have to put it into perspective. 76% of all the people in Africa that are displaced, which is about 26.4 million people, are women and children. So obviously they're not fighters. We know that.
They're not.
And so women and children fleeing, sometimes they have to walk for miles. I met a child in Takoradi, in a camp near Takoradi, where Tebow used to be, who had walked from DRC to Ghana.
What?
Yes, and he was a child. He'd never been to school. I think he started walking, he was probably 9 or whatever, and ended up there.
Scary for a child to just be walking.
Yes.
And how do they feed themselves? How all of these things?
He's just fleeing. So he just ends up in a place where, and I'm so proud always to be, an African festival, because we're so hospitable.
It's true.
Of all the refugees in the world are hosted in Africa. We are so hospitable. You would hear that people are saying refugees are taken over here, the refugees are taken over there. There was a specific here, I remember when we were looking at the statistics with a few, government partners. And they were surprised. The number of refugees that were in, for instance, Europe, all over Europe, were like a fraction of the refugees that were in just one African country. So, we're very hospitable people, in particular Ghana. And I think it's time to start that hospitality into real concrete action and own our own situation. Refugees didn't become refugees through any doing of their own, none whatsoever. In Ghana specifically, and that's another one that gives me goosebumps. I met a girl. I had taken a few people to the camp. There was the guy who owns the most expensive restaurant in the world wanted to do something about food for the refugees because we had food cards. And the food, they were getting only 30% of the ration. And Tebow probably will describe to you the ration. If you get this, just 30% of it, you probably don't have a prayer of staying nourished. One nutritionist told me some time ago that the food basket that we have, if you and I were to stay on that diet, it's a 21 calorie kilojoule diet. If you stay on that diet for 1 year, at the end of the year, we will be malnourished. And I'm not taking it by any standards. So this is the situation. So anyway, this guy brought me there. I brought him there actually to kind of shed light on it. He came with a TV crew and all of that, and with a lady that had won Top Chef in Spain, because they're Spanish speaking. And none of them spoke English, and I obviously don't speak Spanish. And the refugees are French speaking. So I was like, okay, I don't know how we'll do this. You don't speak French or English, so I can translate to you. So we're standing there in a circle, huddled, discussing. And then I heard somebody snicker in the background. And I turned around and very condescendingly, I admit, say, oh, you know a few words of Spanish. And she looked me dead in the eye and said, I did my master's in Madrid. Yes, she was in Abidjan when the unrest started and she had to flee. So she fled to the nearest border, which is Ghana. No degree, no passport, like I was telling you earlier.
No identity.
Nothing. So, and what can you do? Like you have to prove yourself. So she's been sitting in that camp with a pause button on her life for 4 years.
Wow.
Fluent English, fluent Spanish, and fluent French. Polyglot, complete, multilingual with a master's degree sitting in the camp. So the amount of resources and talent that Africa can have and harness, if we all contribute, it would be amazing. I'm so glad that you're strobing our payment options, our donation options across the screen, because really, again, just to digress a bit and talk about that, because I see that on my screen. UNHCR is funded 99% from voluntary contributions.
Wow.
We get only about a 1% of our budget from the central UN pot, which goes towards our staffing and admin costs. So often when we fundraise in situations like this, it's 100% goes directly to direct implementation in the refugee camps. So really, any help is useful. We wouldn't have Tebow articulate, educated, and giving back to the community. He employs Ghanaians, he employs refugees in his team. And he is looking after thousands of people, I would dare say, in Sierra Leone, because he made it out. And now there are a lot of people depend on him for income. And this is the African spirit. This is the Luku Luku spirit that we speak about. Let's really empower each other. Let's try. If you break the poverty cycle, all of us in Africa breathe a little bit. And all of us, kind of grow, have a collective sigh of pride, relief and pride, knowing that there's one less person that is sick. If I'm pretty sure that you're in London now, but I'm sure that you're still paying money to people in Ghana during the COVID. Oh, I need this, I need that. You'll do it. If that person was empowered and didn't have to ask you, they will also pay other people. And refugees, without you and I contributing, don't have that structure.
Wow.
So, I mean, it's really, really critical and urgent that we find a way to empower our brothers and sisters who are in this situation through no fault of theirs.
Absolutely. I think, guys, I've posted it on the comments section. Please click on the link and support. I think, just hearing from Tebow and what he's had to go through, and some of the stories that Nida is saying, that it could happen to any of us. And so, to think of an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old or a 12-year-old to having to go through that. Look at your brother and sister, look at them, and look at the fact that, somebody can just come into your house at any given point and show up a gun and want to take your life and your family's life. Tebow did not see his family for many years and had to trace back his route to try and find where his parents were. And just imagine, I just can't imagine my son being torn away from me and, not seeing his mother, not know where his mother is, don't know whether the mother or father is dead, and all of this situation that they had. And then also appearing in a different country, somewhere that you totally don't know. How do you find your feet? And I think that this type of organization is what we need to be supporting. So guys, as much as possible, whilst we're still having the conversation, please, 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 please use the link. Also, you can do Momo, which is scrolling on your feet. If you're, in abroad, you can use the donate website, which is scrolling at the moment, and you can use the star through 89 star 135 hash across all mobile money networks across Africa. So make sure that you donate. Every little helps. Whatever it is will go into a pot that will help. And so don't think that your 30 Ghana cedi or your 10 Ghana cedi or your £5 or your £10, whatever it is, will be added up to help a young person, to help a woman or a child that is facing these, uncertainty. And so, I want to come back to Tebow and say, what would you say are some of the differences between refugee camps back in the day compared to refugees camps now in Ghana?
Hello. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Tebow.
Yeah, hello. Hi. Obviously, the world has evolved. I remember in the camp, and I'm just gonna really, I was telling my colleagues, I had to reflect on this again. The first time I was actually, we were registered, and then they took us to the camp, and we are placed 4 in a single room, 4 unaccompanied men in a single room. Wow. Right. I did not know none of.
And by room, he means a tent, huh?
In a tent. Yeah. Tent. Yeah. I did not know none of this. I did not know these guys, but because we were unaccompanied and we are young men, so they said, okay, we're gonna group you guys into this shelter. So, and you can imagine really living as an unaccompanied minor in a refugee camp, overcrowded, right? Without nowhere to go, no family member to tend to. I just want people to really reflect back. If in a situations like that, and then there's global pandemic. Right. These were people that were actually living with, I did not even know whether they had medical condition, underlying medical conditions. So in refugee camps, it's so easy for infections to rapidly, affect the whole lot of community because of because the camps are overcrowded, and obviously, in some places, families of 8, families of 10 living in one tent. So you can just imagine, right? In situations like that, in times like these, that's when it becomes so critical, so vulnerable. I can only imagine. I can clearly relate to the vulnerability, to the loneliness, and and the limited opportunity that is out there that refugees will be going through today. People that have been forced from their homes. I just want people to really just reflect upon this and actually, take a step back and actually, know that there are people out there not only vulnerable, but they are so much vulnerable. Because, like me, for instance, I had nowhere to go. Think about it. I had nowhere to go. Like, say, for instance, I'll go to my auntie's house or I'll go to my uncle's house. No, the camp was my only home. So if something was to happen in that camp, obviously my life, I'm like in double jeopardy. So that's what is happening right now. So it is so critical for us an organization that I'm so proud to work, because, guys, half of my life has been with this organization. Like, more than half of my life I've been with this organization. Right. I consider UNHCR as my second parent when I had no family. I was telling me that I said, the only place you can run to is the field office, the protection office. Like that's all what we knew. So, of course, global refugee populations have actually increased. Like my colleague said, over 80 million, close to 80 million people today out of their homes. And neither you can jump in. In terms of the need for refugees, it hasn't diminished. That's one point I would really want people to actually understand. Right, in the midst of COVID, refugees still need rations. Refugees need medical care, clean drinking water.
Yeah.
That hasn't gone away. And that also requires money. Like my colleague said, only 99% of UNHCR funding comes from what? From individual voluntary contributions.
Wow.
And individuals like you and I look and watching this show today. So I really want to appeal to all kind-hearted and blessed humanitarians out there, Ghanaians out there, human beings out there, great people of the world. I believe in humanity, because for me, my life have always been saved, have always been a house of humanity. Right. So I really want to appeal to everybody watching this show today to come on board and really not only support, but stand with people that have been forced to flee from their homes and their villages for no fault of theirs. Absolutely. So that UNHCR can continue protecting them, provide for them the basic needs, right? Things that we take for granted. So perhaps my colleague will want to also say more, Nida.
Yeah. No, before Nida goes on, I want to really talk about, did you always have dreams of leaving the camp to pursue a better life?
Yes, of course, I did. Refugee life was really difficult, was hard. Opportunities were very limited. I remember, in the camps, I always daydreaming, especially at night, when we can hear the echoes from the forest. My camp, the camp that I was actually registered in, deep in Western Ghana, very close to the Ivorian border, was surrounded by forest. So I remember in the middle of the night, all we could hear was the echoes from the forest, and all at that point, all we could do was just to hope and dream. So you can just imagine at that point, coming across UNHCR meant everything. Meant everything.
How did you come across them? How did you come across them?
Good question. So right from the border, because once I arrived at the border, I declared, right, that my name is Tebow Rogers. I'm fleeing conflict from Sierra Leone. I need help. I need protection. That's all I said. Wow. So the immigration officials now
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things you look for, what you look out for when you want to support a refugee?
That's one of the most difficult decisions any humanitarian worker has to make, because when you take a camp of, say, 170,000 people, and you have, limited resources, you have to find a way to make sure that distribution is fair, and everybody needs to get what they need to get. But again, even within the vulnerable, there are vulnerable. We have elderly, we have people with special needs, we have malnourished children, we have acute malnourishment, severe malnourishment, we have, name it. Basically, as I always say, UNHCR truly is like country planning. We do all of it, whether it's healthcare delivery, whether it's water and sanitation, whether it's roads, whether it's incinerators you have to build. If you distribute sanitary material and things that come in plastic bags, you're going to need an incinerator. Name it, we have to do. So what we look at, again, for instance, if you take water, just basic water, the minimum we commit to 17 liters per person per day. That's one flush of a toilet. So every time you flush your toilet, just think about it. That's water. That is what we hope we will be able to give a refugee per day. And in a lot of situations, we are not able to meet it. In some locations, we're only able to give about 7 liters a day. So in this COVID context, where everybody's pressed to wash their hands, if you don't even have enough to do your basics, 17 liters is nothing. That's one flush of water. You're supposed to do your ablutions with it, basically shower, clean yourself, cook. If you're a lady at that time of the month, you need a bit more water. All of that is within that ration. And that's the aspiration. That's the minimum we commit to. And in a lot of situations, we don't meet that. So COVID has really drove that reality home in terms of particularly access to water. That's one. So when you say, how do we distribute? In a situation like that, tell me how you will. You just look for the most vulnerable in the community and you let them have fair service, and then you hope that others will get it. But that's why we frantically, some of my colleagues, as we speak, it's nearly 10 p.m. in Nairobi, but they're online working, because we just know that if we sleep, people lose life. I have colleagues, as we speak, in Syria, in Jordan, everywhere. Just think about Rohingya refugees. I have colleagues, a colleague that it's a very interesting story also, was born in a camp in northern Kenya, who is now deployed, was born there, is now an adult. Wow. And the camp still exists, badly, even if we wouldn't like it to. And now is serving refugees in Rohingya as we speak. So it's really, it's urgent, it's critical. How do you distribute? Somebody said to me, Nida, I want to give you, what was it? I think it was supposed to be 3,000 masks to distribute in Ghana. And I said, we have 13,399 refugees in Ghana. I picked to give you the 3,000 to. Can we maybe find a way to make that into something else? Can we give water? Can we quantify that, and then you give us water that more people will be able to access, and a bit more of a lasting impact? So it's a desperate situation with COVID, and we really truly are all as vulnerable. I emphasize, as the most vulnerable around, among us. It's a shame that we have people that can't even get access to enough water.
Okay. Nida, are most of the refugees under the UNHCR that you invest to, are they able to turn their lives around just like Tebow has?
So one beautiful thing about human nature, and one thing about the resilient spirit of refugees, you can't keep the human spirit down. I remember one time I went into a refugee camp, and there was a wedding between a young couple. They had just basically cut up the mosquito net to make a wedding gown, and used some to decorate on a taxi, and that was the bridal train. And it was phenomenal. It was just beautiful to see that. Love thrives, life thrives, and the human spirit continues to hope and be resilient. It is incumbent on us, who are more fortunate, to make sure that we don't quash all the little hope that they have left by making sure that at least the very basic things that we all take for granted, they can have access to. And we're not talking about connection to an electricity grid or anything like that, just basically water, basic sanitation, and a tent that is not on, so that when the rainy season comes, you know, they don't get diseases where there's no hospital. It's one compounded issue after another. But again, the human spirit thrives.
So would you say that what you need most, what like in the camps, what do you need most? Like if somebody's to donate, obviously the money is very important, but if somebody wants to give you stuff, you mentioned about the mask, you'd rather actually it being water. Is it what is the essential things that you need?
So, I mean, the thing is that it's a long list, but how do you prioritize? So we have to prioritize within the priorities, right? Because we never ever get all the resources that we want. In the midst of COVID, one critical thing is sanitation, water and sanitation. But giving one bowser of water won't solve the problem. So what we would prefer is to be able to put in a borehole to be able, you know, so that the water can pump itself. We want to be able to put in, give people jerry cans so they can fetch water, because there are a lot of things we take for granted because we've lived in homes all our lives. But when you flee, even if somebody was to offer you a hot meal, you can't just collect it in your hand. Where are you going to put the food to eat it? So even the basic necessities, the survival kits that you need, which is a plate, a little plastic plate, a cup, a pot to cook in, if you don't have that, you're even more vulnerable than anything. And it's not something we even think about, because most places have, you know, most homes will have at least a cup, a plate, a bucket, a jerry can to collect clean water. So this is all things we need. We need jerry cans to distribute to refugees. We need boreholes. We need, you know, core relief items for them to, survival kits, basically, I call it, for them to be able to cope. And then we need the bigger infrastructure, things like, you know, water, overhead, water distribution systems. At least a family, you know, right now, the goal is to have each family to have one toilet. In a lot of places we don't have. When we have the KVIP, I don't know if you're familiar with that, the Kumasi ventilated pit. When we have that, I think it's supposed to be 20 people per hole. That's the minimum we can commit to. In one refugee camp, we have 700 people to a hole. Whoa. How are you going to keep hygiene in the middle of COVID? Whoa. If we don't find a solution? 700 is supposed, the minimum is, we have 700 to a hole.
One.
Yes. Can you imagine needing to use the toilet? And that makes dentaa. There are people like you and I. There's a girl in that very camp whose father was a doctor, and now she wants to go to medical school to become a doctor as well. But a middle-class kid, her father was a doctor, is sitting in that camp. That is 700 people to a hole.
Guys, we need to support. Look, if you are watching, I know there are many of you watching, every little helps. Trust me, after this show, I'm also going to be making a personal donation of £300 to start off with.
Thank you very much.
I will donate that myself. I feel that, look, I have children, and Tebow's story has really touched me. And has inspired me that, look, if we support, we'll have more stories like Tebow.
Precisely.
If we support, we will have more stories like Tebow. And I think that, you know, it's about all of us coming together. This is the time. We talk about Africans supporting Africans. This is the time that we all need to support. Wherever you are, people in the diaspora, just donate. Even if it's just £5, just donate and help somebody. You know, how can 700 people be using one toilet? In this house, even in my house, sometimes me and my children are fighting over the toilet. Who wants to, you know, and just imagine there's 700 of you trying to use the toilet, you know. And so, guys, you know, these are little things that we take for granted. You know, there are vulnerable people out there. There's 13,000 of them in Ghana currently, right? And we need to support, and in other African countries as well. Every little helps. Guys, let us all support as much as possible. And also, I'm going to talk to our board as the Goober Foundation and see how we can also raise money to support the organization. I think that, you know, this is crucial at this time, especially with COVID-19, when we are trying to protect ourselves. And I'm just thinking how vulnerable they are in that situation right now. There's, you know, I feel like, so somebody asked the question, what support is given to organizations such as yours to deal with the crisis?
So it's individuals. Anybody can support us. Look, even if you were to give 10 CDs or £5, as you said, or $10 or whatever, you're buying back a little bit of dignity for someone who looks like you.
Yeah.
You're just buying back a little bit of dignity for somebody. And you know, it's really something that, again, I'm incredibly passionate about this, obviously. But I can't imagine not being passionate about it, because it's another human life. It's really like a matter of life and death to be able to, in this COVID era, be able to make sure that we have measures in place for refugees to be able to live with. So basically, the any support financial is there. Spread the word. But you know, again, this is the donate.unhcr.org. And you, wherever you are in the world, if you forget, it's just donate.unhcr.org. You can also just take a screenshot now and get your Momo and use the Momo details. I think everybody does world remit and different mobile money things now. So again, it's 389-135, any mobile money platform. You can use that for Momo account and support us with whatever and feel good about it, because UNHCR is publicly audited by governments. So it's I mean, whether it's the UN, we cannot, it's very transparent. As we speak, if you wanted to see what our expenditure is, you can look at it in real time. So it's not, because we are 99% publicly funded from voluntary contributions, we are very transparent. There is no room for somebody embezzling your money or any of that. None of us here handles any money. It goes direct into the UN account, and none of us, you know, get to touch that. But we're very accountable, and the needs are real, and we all know what it can do in real time for people. So really, thank you for the opportunity. I think
no problem. I have another guest, Akria. Oh, I think I've just lost her. She's somebody who was in the UK, that her dad was a refugee. And through that, when she came, I wanted her to share her own story. Okay, I think she's back. She decided to become a refugee's lawyer.
Excellent. Excellent. See, that's a great success story.
And so, Akria.
Hi, dentaa. Hi, everybody.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us on tonight. I just wanted to briefly for you to share your story and your dad's journey of being a refugee, and you also coming to the UK and, you know, through that, becoming a refugee's lawyer.
Right. I didn't listen to the whole thing. Sorry, thanks for having me. And hello, everybody. I didn't hear everybody's story right from the beginning. But mine is basically, well, started off my dad. My dad used to be an editor of the Graphic in Ghana. So in the PNDC era, when there was no freedom of speech, he was bold enough to go against the government, basically, and was imprisoned without trial for a year and a half. So that was around the time that I was about to go to secondary school in the mid-80s. And then early 90s, he went for an interview in Nigeria after being released from prison. And in his absence, he was sentenced to death in absentia. So basically, he didn't come back to Ghana, and Amnesty International, with the help of Elizabeth Ohene, arranged for him to be taken to Europe. He was actually supposed to go to Germany, but when the flight transited through the UK. So when they got to Heathrow, he said he got out of the plane. He had all his articles everything about him being sentenced to death in absentia, being imprisoned without trial, blah, blah, blah. So everything that made sure that he qualified as a refugee under the 1951 convention, he had everything in his hands, got out of the plane to immigration at Heathrow, showed all his documents, and more or less was interviewed and granted refugee status on the spot at Heathrow. So after getting that status, he applied for us, my younger brother and I, to join him in the UK. And so in June 1990, we joined him in the UK. And so we did, the UNHCR, of course, arranged for us to join him. So we didn't go through the whole journey through having some horrendous journey, traveling some horrendous journey routes, going through the Sahara like some people do. We went the normal way. UNHCR took us to join our father. Now, you get in and you're told you can no longer use your Ghanaian passport. You're given a UN passport. At the time it was blue. I think that has changed. You're given a UN passport that said that you can travel to any country apart from Ghana. And that was a bit different because it felt like, okay, am I still Ghanaian or am I not Ghanaian? At the same time, I'm not British. So where do I belong? And then we used to have this joke that you're now a UN citizen, whatever that means. So for 5 years, we had this UN passport until we qualified for British citizenship and then became British. But as a refugee in Ghana for those 5 years, going from Ghana to the UK, it was a bit of a shock because we did not live in a camp like a lot of refugees are made to do now. My dad had a home, we lived with my dad, but you still stuck out. You went to school and everybody knew that you were different because now, first of all, the government was paying for your meals. So you joined a different queue from everyone else. And then when it was time to pay, you used a card to make payments. You didn't use money because you had a card that the matron at the canteen will sort of tick for every day that you came to eat. That showed that they'd paid for you. The government had paid for your meal. When you go on the bus, you had a different travel card from everyone else because you got a travel card from the government. And then this went on till I went to uni, and then later on became British. You in school, you could hear people make certain comments behind your back. And I went to a predominantly white school. You had people who were very ignorant about Africa. People would ask you questions like, so is it true that you live on trees in Africa? And then, my dad has sort of prepared me for some of these questions. So my answer was, yes, we do live on trees. The UK High Commissioner to Ghana was my next door neighbor. He lived on the next tree. So then everyone looked at you like, oh, she's being cheeky. But what I realized was that the white people couldn't really touch you if you were smart. And I had gone from one of the best schools in Ghana, Wesley Girls, and I made sure that I shone in everything that I did. And our standards were much higher than the UK. So it was as if I was being taken 3 years. Whilst in the UK, academically, I felt like I'd been taken back 3 years. That's something that I think when refugees do get the opportunity, is something that they should be bold enough and confident enough to build on, because we're coming from, as Africans going to Europe, we're coming from a system that is very rigorous compared to what the Europeans have. And if you can just apply yourself a little bit, just a little bit, you will shine. And then if you're able to shine, they can't really touch you. They can't really be horrible towards you, because they'll need you when they need help with their schooling, when they need help with homework, with whatever. They're going to have to come to you.
But
so
Akia,
is that
what made you become, use what you went through to become a refugees lawyer? Why?
I was I mean, to start off with, I didn't want to be a lawyer. My dad made me do law, and then I found myself becoming a lawyer. And then when I had to do my articles after law school, I found myself in a law firm that had one Nigerian lawyer, immigration lawyer, and she needed support. So I said, okay, I'll support you. I'll try my hand at this. And I realized I go on really well with the people, with the clients. So you had people coming from Iraq, coming from Iran, coming from Afghanistan, Somalia, Sierra Leone, from all over the world. You had to represent. And I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed listening to their stories. I knew that it could have been me.
Yeah.
Their story could have been my story. It's just that, yes, my dad was harassed in Ghana. We had police there, soldiers coming to the home with guns and ransacking the house and all that. But it didn't touch me remotely. What they went through could have been me. It could have been me from Iraq being maltreated. It could have been me from Sierra Leone being maltreated and going through some terrible journey to get to the UK. So it was a lot of sympathy that I felt for them, and also the fact that I had been a refugee myself.
Yeah,
is something that really made me decide that this is what I want to do. And to see the look on their faces, we're able to get refugees, to get them recognized as refugees in the UK, and to get all the support that comes with it. I mean, there's nothing like that. There's nothing like the feeling that comes with that status.
Yeah. And Akia, what do you think about the role of UNHCR and how, the role that they play in our community?
I think the UNHCR is doing a fantastic job. I think that they need a lot of support. I mean, I read a report somewhere that a lot of refugees don't have the basic, all the basic needs that they're supposed to get. Today, I was reading about refugees from Ethiopia who have come to Somalia and are on their way to Yemen. Now there's a war in Yemen, but the refugees aren't even aware that there's a war in Yemen. A lot of them don't know that there's COVID. A lot of them haven't heard about it, which is quite worrying because it's a highly contagious and infectious disease.
Yeah.
So UNHCR is doing a very good job, but there's a lot more to be done, especially in these COVID times.
Yeah.
It's for a lot of refugees, it's going to be one thing. It's either you're going to die from COVID or you're going to die from some horrendous traveling experience. So, and also, if a lot of these refugees are going to end up in camps, what sort of facilities are they going to have to protect themselves from COVID? They need social distancing. Is it going to be possible in the camps? They need water, adequate water. UNHCR is doing a lot, but UNHCR needs a lot of support and help.
Yeah, Nida, do you want to come in here?
Yes, indeed, Akia, thank you. And, you are one of the fortunate ones. Very few people get to experience refugee life the way that you did. And again, I actually say you're right. When you go to school in other places outside of the continent, you are other and you're different. And you use the conventional travel document that you described. It is still blue. But it's not. The reality is that we as a continent, your father and you should not need to leave the entire continent to find a solution. That should not happen at all. We should own our own situation. And we, Africans, Africa, 2/3 of Africans are middle class. There is no reason why if each of us even give £10 a week, £10 a week, we would be able to fund the refugee situation in Africa, for sure. I mean, without a beat, without missing a beat, we would be able to meet the minimum requirement that we are unable to meet now. So that's the first thing I think that we should look at. And if you describe people going to Somalia and on the way to Yemen, it's not so much that they don't know that there is war. They do know. The refugees have a network, because to stay alive, you need to be connected. You need to know what's ahead of you. You need to know what's behind you. They know, but it's the frying pan into the fire. So basically, to think that somebody considers that a solution to take that horrendous journey, knowing that there's a war en route, you know that they're coming from like deep fire. And that's the thing. There was that poet who said, no mother will put their child on the boat in the sea if the land is safe. And this is the reality of the refugee journey. A lot of people have to take chances that you cannot imagine, that you would think, no, I can't do that. I see a comment there, somebody asking how our local government's responding. Yeah. Phenomenal, really phenomenal. Resources, as we all know, are tight. And I think that on our continent particularly, it takes individuals in the private sector and faith-based organizations and places of worship to be able to really shape this narrative with just basically financial support. That's all that at this point is required. Governments in Africa are incredibly generous, as we established earlier. The legislation across are very great. In some countries, there's restriction of movement and refugees need an exit to leave the camp. In other places, they can come and go as they please. In other places, there is a need to be able to restrict some movement for some and not all because of the profile of the person, etc. But yeah, African government, to Christy Addy, African governments are incredibly supportive. But the reality is that the way we've been looking at the refugee journey as Africans is, and I quote this journalist I spoke to who unpacked it to me so beautifully. She said, Africans think we are the hospitality tent and the caterers are from somewhere else, but they're not. There are no caterers somewhere else. This is our family. This is our people. We have to find the solution for them. And again, £10, even if it's £10 a month that you can do, just let's all make a commitment to it because they look like us. All of us, if all of us were to hit the road in the UK, and there's nobody, we're all refugees as far as anybody is concerned. And uplifting the image of the African refugee, it is really, truly in all our collective interest. You cannot be all cleaned up as a parent, glammed up, and then your kid is barefoot and dirty walking around. You don't like it, and it reflects badly on you. Same with the refugee situation. It's in our backyard. Absolutely. And about a quarter are from here. It's not the way to do it. We have to find a solution. And it's really, truly something that money can help solve. Legislation is in place, and we continue to lobby government where it's not in place. But we really need to put our resources to it. That's what we can do. We can't all, be in the legislature, in parliament, and organize it. But what we can do as individuals is truly to just donate.
Absolutely. Keep donating. The link is scrolling on your screen. I just want to say a big thank you to Akia for joining us and sharing your story as well on your journey. I don't know whether you have your last word, and then I'll let you go.
So if there are any refugees out there watching, I would like to encourage you. I know of the UK situation, which is that the UK is quite welcoming to refugees. Other countries like Germany as well, but not every country is. But what I have to tell you is that just keep hope up, and every little opportunity that you get to improve yourself, make sure to make the most of it. Because refugee is not a title for life. It's not something that's going to be tagged to you for life. You might have been through a lot, but encourage yourself and put your past experiences behind you. Look forward towards a brighter future. Look towards greater opportunities, and whatever opportunity you get, please make the most of it and shine at it. I left the UK. I'm back in Ghana. I'm practicing law in Ghana. I'm also helping my country to get better. The same country that persecuted my dad, different government. I'm helping my country to get better. You can also go back and help your country at some point to improve. So please, just make the most of every opportunity. If you get the opportunity to go to school, whatever it is, make the most of it. Because refugee is not a title forever.
It's not a title for life. I love that. Thank you so much, Akia, for sharing your story and your journey. We really, really appreciate that. I want to come back to Tebow and just say, Tebow, how were you able to, start working for the UN? I mean, what happened?
I remember when I finally got to Australia, just like what Akia was saying, what opportunity you get, go for it. And I was so fortunate to be educated here in Ghana. So once I arrived in Australia, I strive very hard. I got myself into university. Immediately I finished university, I ran away. I ran from my state. I was in South Africa. The only way I was able to work in UNHCR was for me to move states, to go to Sydney, and I went to Sydney. And the only job that was there was doing fundraising on the street. I did not care. I did not like anything, whatever to do with UNHCR. Being part of the family again. I was just ready to do it. And so yeah, and it's been 10 years, 10.5 years now.
Wow.
The years are counting. Yeah.
So,
did you guys hear me?
Yeah, you cut off at the tail part of what you were saying, but in essence, we got what you were saying. But Tebow, for anybody that is watching you right now, and for everything that you have been through, what are your words to the public right now?
I would just say two things. Be hopeful, right, and also be positive. UNHCR, despite all the challenges, despite all the limitations, give hope to refugees when there's no hope. We've lost all hope. So let us continue to be hopeful, and let us continue to be positive. There's always light at the end of the tunnel, despite all these struggles.
Thank you. And Tebow, we touched on we're touching on it. I think something happened, but did you ever get any other refugees given any psychology, for what the traumatic things that they go through? Are they given any a help with mental health? When you go into the camps.
Yes, that's a really, really good question. I was actually waiting for you to ask that question, and I was just telling my colleagues today, like I only shared this whole trauma that I've actually had to go through and that had to live with me for years. But unfortunately, I did not share my story in terms of the trauma I was actually facing. But then I do know that UNHCR do have counselors refugee camps to really counsel some vulnerable people like myself in that state. Obviously, to be honest, every refugee is traumatized, guys. Every refugee is traumatized.
Yeah.
Right, because in one way or the other, some people are stronger than others. Some are not too strong. And I guess for me, to be honest, perhaps my positive spirit perhaps would have was my biggest strength, really. But yes, there are opportunities for counseling and for trauma support in refugee camps. But obviously, it's not enough. A lot can be done, and obviously, the more resources that UNHCR have, UNHCR can employ more counselors, can employ more psychologists, in refugee camps.
Oh, I see that Tebow is having trouble with his mic again. Yeah, no, Tebow, I think, spot on, Tebow. And dentaa, just to add that this is part of the invisible work of UNHCR. It's very difficult to tell a donor, give me money to do psychosocial counseling, but it is critical. Like the woman I described to you, whose baby she was, well, her baby still wake up screaming. So we have to do post-traumatic counseling. And it's very real, and counseling is part of it. But it's also the one that is least attractive to donors to pay for, because it's abstract and it's not something tangible that they see. But it's a core part of UNHCR's work, and that we use staff and different people to do.
Mm. And do the people, I know when they come into the camps, do they get to pick who they want to share the camps with?
No, because we build peace building into the camp setup, because don't forget they're coming from conflict, and people from different tribes, you have to learn to peacefully coexist. So if you start segregating at that point, you're perpetuating the problem. But that's the problem. The thing is that even if you're from the same place, you may not trust your neighbor. You're coming from war. So you don't know if your neighbor is the one who told on your uncle and why you had to flee because so-and-so did this or so-and-so did that. So you have to build peace building. Again, they say if peace building is successful, it's invisible. Because you're supposed to help people to be able to live, coexist in harmony.
Nita, what's a typical day in, I want to ask Tebow, but I think his reception, it might not be good, but what's a typical day in a refugee camp?
So, I mean, you wake up, you have if you have more of a permanent structure, either a mud hut or a stone building, or sometimes in the case of Ghana, some people have like little stick porches where they've used the tent material in the blue fabric to put across. And they then you wake up, you do your ablutions, clean your little space, and watch the day go by. And you could be a lawyer, you could be a broadcaster. There's a broadcast journalist in Budubram in Ghana that I met. He was living in his little room. He used to be a TV presenter. I knew him from back in the day. And he was in his little room with his 5 children and his wife. And his room is not much bigger probably than your dining table. And he lived in that thing for 9 years. So yeah, and he eventually got a job trying to remember the newspaper, but he got a job with a newspaper in Accra, and then he was happier until if he didn't. I mean, that's one at the time. 48,000 refugees in Ghana. One got a job. So yeah, so
Wow.
it is. This is really. It's not. People say no refugees. That it's not true. But I'll give you a little back hint into my personality and myself. Before I took the job at UNHCR, I was in Ghana at the time, and we had all bought into the myth and the narrative that all refugees were criminals. At the time, it was a Liberian refugee caseload, and we had heard stories. They put a plank of wood on the street with nails in it, and then when you drive over it, you have a flat tire, and they rob you, and all the rest of it. So by nature, I like the facts straight. So I went to the police headquarters on the Ring Road to check the statistics on convicted criminals in Ghana. And I was blown away. I consider myself very liberal. I consider myself very open-minded and kind. And I had bought into the myth. When I looked at the statistics, Ghanaians used to say it was refugees and Nigerians who were the thieves. Of the list of people convicted in Ghana, everybody was Ghanaian, except 3 who were Nigerian. 3 convicted criminals at the time were Nigerian. No refugees. It was Ghanaians who were doing their own crime. And the myth that we and I was like, okay, I have my job cut out for me. I was hired to do advocacy for the refugee cause. So before I can do advocacy, I have to believe in it. So this is what I did before I ended up accepting a position with UNHCR. Wow. Yeah, and I remember I went with Freddie Blay, Honorable Freddie Blay, to the camp. He was like, but it's not the axis of evil that it's just an ordinary town. And I was like, can you say that into the camera so we can tell all Ghana that this is what it is? And he did. But yeah, so there's really a lot of myths that around the refugee situation. There's
a question as well here, Nita.
Sorry?
There's a question here.
Oh, okay. Where can I go if I wanted to volunteer time to work with refugees in Ghana? Tebow is there, and he has teams out in the malls fundraising and doing different things. But if we have what is the web address book? You can look at UNHCR Ghana on Instagram, UNHCR Africa, or Luku Tribe on any of the platforms, and inbox us, and we will definitely get back to you, Ellen. Thank you for your interest.
Thank you. If you don't mind typing it on the private section for me, then I'll put it on your social media.
So it's so at Luku Tribe. Remember that we spoke a little bit about that and how.
Yes. So how do you typically fundraise, Tebow, in Ghana?
Yeah, we do various fundraising strategies. So one of the main ways we fundraise is through face-to-face fundraising. Obviously, through engaging with Ghanaians in shopping malls. We want to expand that as well into wherever we can go, like corporate places, events. Because the goal is really to reach out to a lot of Ghanaians. because the more Ghanaians we actually interact with, right, the more Ghanaians we can actually inspire to donate. So we do face-to-face fundraising, we do events. We also got one of the programs that I actually like, for the first time actually I was part of it, Step for Safety. I've not told you this, but I actually like Step for Safety because it's actually Africans really moving and marching really in the footsteps of refugees, and at the same time not only raising awareness, but obviously raising funds as well, buying t-shirt and wearing it and walking in the footsteps of refugees, solidarity with refugees. For me, it's amazing. So you can anytime you see our guys, our fundraisers, like in shopping malls and events, please, walk to them, talk to them, and then sign up and become a monthly donor for refugees, because it's only through regular monthly support that UNHCR can actually be able to really provide that effective support. I remember in the camp, I was sharing my story. I was sharing my story with my colleagues today. Back in the days, like, every single month, we receive rations from UNHCR and partners. I can just imagine. And there were some months as well that, our rations, varies. And I only got to understand that the reason why some months we get a bit more rations and some months we get a bit less rations was because of funding. So the more support UNHCR gets, obviously, the more it's actually translated into refugee camps. That's just no two way about it, right? So it's so critical that we all come on board and support the work of UNHCR, and people forced to flee, families forced to flee, guys. In most cases, we just flee just with the clothes on their backs, and that is why it is so important that all of us come together. And if you are not able to actually see some of our guys in center or events, please visit our donate link, or donate via our Momo code, which is *189 *135#. Right, wherever you are, you can be able to donate.
No, 389.
Yeah, it's scrolling on the screen anyway. It's scrolling, so use the one on the screen. But I just
awesome.
say that, Nida, I don't know if it's possible, but when I do come to Ghana, I would love to go to the camps, and really kind of do a special interview with the team there and see the work that they are doing, so that we can showcase it more, so people can see it and also donate more as well. So guys, I just want to say a big thank you to Nida and Tebow for joining me on tonight's show. It's been very inspiring, very emotional for me, actually. I'm sitting here just reflecting and just thinking about, the situation that Tebow had to go through as a child, and no child should go through that. I know that yesterday there was a tremor in Ghana, and I think it happened 3 times. And my husband said to me that it was so scary, right? The tremor that happened. And I'm just thinking, I'm just comparing the two, like, how scary must it be? And he goes that my 3-year-old was screaming, So just imagine you being at home and some people come in with guns and knives and whatever. What kind of feeling, what will go through your head? You will hear screaming, you will hear shouting, and you can't do anything about it. But guys, guess what? We can do something about it. These 13,900 or so refugees are in Ghana currently, and they need our support. And as you know, I use my platform for positiveness to empower and to find solutions. And this is the solution that we have right now, for you to just pick up your phone, pick up your laptop and donate. Let's donate, even if it's just £5 that you can donate a month. £5, £10 that you can do. Let us support. They are our brothers and sisters. No matter what journey they're coming from or where they are going, they are our brothers and sisters. And so we must help them. We must really, really help them and come together and make sure that they survive. They have their testimonies. just like Tebow has, you know. And I think this is the time that we all need to come together and build and support the UNHCR. So Nida, I'll get you to say your last few words that maybe you want to share with people before you go. And definitely from my side, I will keep pushing what your organization is doing on my social media, on every platform that I have, to make sure that the support that you need gets that attention.
Thank you. Thank you so much, really, Denta, for your interest and your passion and just for basically engaging on this very critical issue. Again, for me, I am because we are. And if we all just think about that collective, Ghanaians are very religious people, for instance. And if you truly believe that, you know, a higher power is in charge of us and we are as tiny as ants in the cosmos, then you know that if you can reach out and help somebody else and you don't, it's a grave sin. And I think just that Ubuntu philosophy, I am because you are, we will, if we all tap into that, that is the Luku Luku spirit. Luku Luku basically is a family circle of humanity and interdependency and how we can all lift ourselves. And if 10 pounds or 5 pounds or 20 pounds or $5 or 5 CDs or 10,000, whatever you can do, and you do it, you know that, again, I repeat, you're buying a piece of dignity for somebody that looks like you. So let's all pitch in and let's do, everybody, just put your widow's mite in it and let's really try and change the narrative of the African refugee. Thank you very much. Really, really appreciate the time with you.
Thank you so much, Nida. And Tebow, your last words. If I can hear you, I hope I get you. Your last few words.
Yeah, hello, hi. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
So all what I want to say is that being a refugee does not really define your end. And let us all continue to come together and help people that are the most vulnerable in the world. I am sitting here today, not in my capacity, but I'm sitting here today as a human being. Like you rightly said, I do not know what was going to happen to me. But when I arrived in Ghana, with the warm welcome that I received in Ghana and the support that I received from Ghana people, gave me life again, made me feel like a human being again. And today, I'm here today contributing. I just want to urge everybody that in the midst of every difficulty, there's always hope.
Absolutely.
UNHCR it's always striving to give hope where all hope has been lost. And I want to thank you. And I want to thank your listeners. Please join this organization and support. Thank you.
We will. Thank you so much, Tebow. Nida, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you very much.
I'll definitely speak to you on the other side. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
And also, I just want to say that if you are looking to the history Ghana, please subscribe to the Ghana Connect. If you want partners, if you want to buy land, if you want to buy home in Africa, and you want to get Africa, please subscribe to the Ghana Connect. Again, I want to say thank you to the video. It's online, it's fabulous. This is her website details. Make sure that you go online and get a lip gloss for yourself. We're supporting, our own, so make sure that you do that. And also to, our young sister out there that's doing the jollof seasoning, the shito, the all-purpose seasoning, that's her website. Make sure that you go online and grab one or grab two or three or four and support. And again, like I said, you can go on ODANA Network for those Africans around the world that wants a platform to connect with each other, to look at opportunities in agriculture, to look at opportunities in real estate. This is the website that you can go on and connect with one another. Make sure that you download your Tap Send to send money to a loved one in Ghana, and use the promo code dentaa and send money to somebody. Also use the mobile money number that is scrolling to support somebody who is a refugee. Guys, I just want to say a big thank you to my team as well for putting on this show, and for the UN for us accepting them on our show tonight. So thank you so much. And I will see you same time next week. God bless. Bye-bye.